Spring break used to be my favorite time of year, but it was never really about the week of endless partying for me and my friends. What we loved to do every year was to take a boat out and fish for days on end. For the most part, we would just rent a boat and take it in and out of the water throughout the week. It used to be one of the most relaxing times of the year. But after what happened in 2017, I don't think any of us would ever really do it again. For some reason, that year, one of our friends, Mark, decided to bring someone with him onto the boat. It was this guy that only Mark knew from his job, but he supposedly knew the best fishing spots along the coast of Maine, which is where we lived. I didn't know the guy, but I could tell that there was something off about him. He wouldn't really make eye contact when he talked to us, and kept his big hoodie on during the whole time we were cruising out to the supposedly great fishing spot. We were on the boat for about an hour and a half before Mark's friend told us to slow down and said we were getting close to the spot. That was when we all realized why he was wearing such a baggy jacket when it was nearly 90 degrees out. We slowed the boat down and got ready to pull our fishing gear out. Mark's friend put himself between us and the console controlling the boat, and before any of us could do anything, he had pulled a gun out from his jacket pocket. Mark tried to ask the guy what he was doing, but I felt like we all knew what was about to happen. The man pushed Mark back and shoved the gun in his face as he yelled for all of us to back up. We all took a step back toward the edge of the boat, trying our best not to set him off. "Hop in," he said calmly, once we were all standing next to each other. "Get in the water, now!" he yelled louder as he looked around to make sure that no other boats were near us. The man forced us off the boat and into the water though. Once we were there, I was half sure that he was going to shoot us one by one and be done with it. But he just smiled from the boat before walking over to the console and turning the engines back on. Within minutes, the boat that we had rented was in the process of driving off toward the horizon, and there wasn't anything we could do about it except float there. We did our best to keep our calm as we looked around, and it set in that we were surrounded by nothing but water on all sides of us. After talking about it for a minute, we decided we couldn't risk expending the energy by swimming back. Instead, we chose to all move in close to each other and try our best to float together as a unit as we waited for any sign of help. Hours passed and there wasn't a single sign of any other boats. By that point, I had taken the shirt I was wearing off because I could feel it weighing me down, which I thought might have been a mistake at first because I was starting to feel really cold. We all kept talking to each other as we did our best not to think about the monsters that could have been lurking beneath us. All of us knew that there were often sharks spotted off the coast. Time continued to tick by slowly, and eventually the sun started to set. Panic began to set in for all of us as we realized that if a boat didn't come to save us soon, we likely wouldn't be rescued until the next day, if that. Things started to get really scary, and our minds started playing tricks on us as we all started seeing shadows moving around in the water beneath us. With every wave, we would see a shimmer that had one of us panicking that there was a shark, but none of us ever actually saw a fin. The sun continued to set, and at that moment, I really thought all hope was lost. That was when Mark let out a loud scream. At first, I thought that he had gotten injured, and I turned to him expecting to see blood in the water, but thankfully there was none. Instead, I saw a light coming from the opposite direction of the sun, and I knew that it had to be a boat. We all started to scream and flail about in the water, and eventually the boat made its way over to us. The fishermen on board pulled us out of the water, and as I climbed onto the deck, I noticed my shirt that I took off was sitting on the railing. According to one of the men on the boat, they found my shirt and decided to check to see if anyone needed help. Thank God for that, because I don't know if I had the energy to last the rest of the night. Once we got to shore, Mark contacted the police and we all gave them our statement. His coworker was arrested a week or so later when he was pulled over in another state for driving in a suspected stolen vehicle. Needless to say, that was our last spring break fishing trip. Every spring break between the years of 2010 and 2013, my friends and I attended this massive lake party that was hosted every year a couple of hours away from our town. I wish we knew that 2013 was going to be the last year that it was held though, because when we went back the next year, we were in for one of the scariest weekends of my life. This festival was very word of mouth, and the only way to know about it is you heard about it from someone who went before. The only reason we knew about it was because our friend Casey's brother used to go every year. So it's not surprising that we didn't hear that they canceled the festival that year. But in hindsight, we definitely should have contacted someone, because when we pulled up to the trail that led to the lakefront, we were surprised to see no cars parked in the lot. We decided to get our tents and gear from the back of the car and walk out to the lake anyway, to see if maybe we were a day early or something. We made our way down the trail, and I started to get a bad feeling in my chest almost immediately. I remember asking my buddy who was in front of all of us if he could see anything yet. He yelled back that no one was there. We all made it to the lake and took a seat near a few large rocks that we put our stuff on and talked about what we should do. A few of us wanted to just head home and figure out something else to do that weekend, but we eventually settled on camping out for the night and seeing if maybe people showed up in the morning. We all set up our tents and then got some firewood together so we could cook up some food. As we walked around the woods grabbing all the dry twigs and sticks I could find, I thought I heard someone walking around behind me. When I looked though, I could never see anybody, so I just assumed it was an animal. Funny enough though, when I got back to camp, one of my friends who was also gathering wood said that he heard something walking around. I laughed because I thought he was messing with me, but he gave me this look like he was dead serious. I explained that I heard something too, but everyone thought like I did and just assumed it was an animal. It got dark quickly that night, and as the sun went down, that uneasy feeling that I had when we first walked up the trail came back. Even though we were all surrounding the campfire, I couldn't help but look around. I'm glad I did though, because as I turned my head to look over my shoulder, I noticed something quickly moving through the darkness. I practically jumped up from my chair and pointed my flashlight in the direction that I saw movement. By the time I got it turned on, all of my friends were wondering what I was looking at. The dark forest in front of me was lit up by the light of the flashlight, and sticking out from behind a tree, I could see what looked like the side of someone's arm. We all saw the same thing and did our best not to move, as we tried to figure out who, or better yet, why somebody was hiding out in the woods near our camp. As I stood there with my light shining at the tree, a man slowly leaned out from behind it. He was wearing what looked like a dirty orange sweater, and judging by the dirt on his face and the length of his beard, he had been in the woods for a while. The flashlight didn't faze him, and he seemed to lock his eyes in on us. I remember taking a step back as I quietly told my friend to get his car keys. "We're going to make a run for it and come back for our stuff later," I said. Now, I don't know if the man heard me say that, but as soon as my friend started shuffling around and getting ready to run, he stepped out from behind the tree. He had the face of a predator on as he started moving toward us, and we all knew that we had to move as fast as we could. We all took off running toward the trail that would lead us to our car. I did my best to make sure that we all stayed together, and two of my friends were even throwing things behind us as we ran, hoping to hit the man that was chasing us. We managed to make it to the parking lot, and as soon as we were close enough, my friend unlocked the car with the remote on his keys. Without wasting any time, we hopped into the car and pulled out of the parking lot as fast as we could. As we were pulling away, I looked back toward the trail, and even though I couldn't see the man anymore, I knew he was watching us. We drove for about 15 minutes before finding a motel that we could afford for the night, and immediately got a hold of Casey's brother to see if he knew why there was no festival. It took him a little while to get back to us, but when he did, he said that apparently campers had been getting attacked in their tents at night by someone who was stealing all of their gear. The next day, we went back to the campsite for our stuff, but as I suspected, everything that we had brought with us was gone. We considered ourselves lucky that we didn't get hurt, but that was going to be our last time ever visiting that lake. It was spring break of '09 when a few of my sorority sisters decided to finally go to Florida. I knew I had to go with them. I always wanted to go to Miami. Now I'd be happy if I never went back. The first few days there were amazing. We hung out at a few bars and met a ton of people. On our second night in Miami, though, we met a group of guys who seemed really nice. They told us that there was going to be this party the next day at one of the beach houses near the bar we were at, and that we should come. At first, we all thought that we'd rather not go to a stranger's house, especially on spring break. But halfway through the next day, we all talked about it again. And I don't know what was different about it, but for some reason, we all changed our minds. That night, we went to the address that the guys gave us at the bar. and when the taxi we took dropped us off, we all thought we were at the wrong place. We didn't hear any music playing or see anybody outside partying. I walked up to the door and rang the doorbell, expecting to be told that we were at the wrong address, but I was shocked when one of the guys answered the door. When I asked where everyone was, he told me that we were just early and then invited us in. Something in the back of my head was telling me that we should just turn around, but I figured it was nothing, and we all went inside. Once I was inside, I saw the few guys that we met at the bar last night. They were all sitting on two couches with a table in the middle that was covered in empty beer cans and cigarette boxes. I looked at my friend Claire, and I remember thinking that these guys might not be as cool as we thought. We all tried to get a little more comfortable, as we hoped that people would start showing up to the party. But as more time went by, nobody else came. That's when I noticed that each of the guys we were hanging out with started slowly trying to separate us from each other. At first, I thought it was just in my head, but it was like they were trying to corner us or something. At one point, I tried to walk away from the one I was talking to by saying I had to use the bathroom. But as I tried to pass by him, he grabbed my arm and said, "You're not trying to run away, are you?" My eyes got really wide, and I honestly didn't know what to say. Thankfully, he chuckled as if he had just told a bad joke, and then he let me go. I walked over to the bathroom, which was right next to Claire. I looked at her and just outright said, "We need to leave." My other friends overheard us, and they all got up from where they were sitting quickly enough for me to know that they were just as uncomfortable as I was. As our friend Jen stood up, though, the guy that was talking to her grabbed her by the wrist and tried to pull her back down next to him. She pulled her arm away from him and yelled at him to stop. Claire and I grabbed Jen's other arm and pulled her away from the guy, and then we all got our stuff ready to leave. That was when the guys tried to tell us that everything's okay and to calm down. But as they were doing this, I noticed one of them walking over to the front door and locking it. Things were about to get really bad, and I could feel it in my bones. I didn't want things to escalate any more than they already had, so I pulled out the can of mace that my dad had given me when he found out that we were going to Miami. I pointed the pepper spray at the man who was in between us and the door and told him that he needed to open it before I sprayed him. Instead of going to unlock the door, though, he took a step toward us. I didn't hesitate to spray him with the pepper spray, making him fall off balance. I managed to push past him and unlock that door. We all ran out of the house as fast as we could and straight toward the road. It took a minute for someone to actually pull over for us, but once someone did, they realized how scared we were and helped us contact the police. The police went to the house that we were almost trapped at and spoke with the guys who tricked us into going there, and while they searched the place, they ended up finding pills that they believed were roofies. We ended up flying back home the next day and cutting our spring break short after realizing that we might not have ever made it home had we not gotten out of that house in time.